The Galactic Council room was filled with shouting. Screens blinked red. Lights flashed warnings. After 300 years of peace, someone had finally declared war. It was the Krell Dominion. They were known across the stars for their cold hearts and iron fists. They believed in control, in power, in fear. For years, they had waited, built weapons, trained armies. And now, they had chosen their target, Earth. The room fell silent when the name came up on the screen. Earth, home of the humans, a planet that had not fought a war in centuries, a world that had once terrified the stars, but had not raised a weapon in so long. Many believed they had grown weak. The humans won't survive this, a Grelt ambassador said, his scales twitching. They are soft now, quiet. They've forgotten war. Others agreed. Some were even glad. They remembered old human stories, terrible ones. Stories where humans destroyed enemies with fire and silence, with weapons and words. If the Krell wiped them out, maybe those old stories would finally die too. The Council sent the news to Earth, along with warnings and offers of help. But Earth did not respond. No message, no call, no panic. Just one reply, written in old Terran code. Understood. That was all. It made no sense. The Krell had declared war. Entire fleets were preparing. Yet Earth stayed silent. Across the galaxy, people waited. The humans had many allies. The Draxians, the Nor, the Tele. All of them tried to reach out. Still, there was nothing. The Earth's communication channels were open, but quiet. Their cities were full, but calm. Satellites showed people walking in the streets, drinking coffee, laughing. No one was hiding. No one was scared. No military ships moved. No weapons were launched. It was like they didn't care. Some believed Earth didn't understand the danger. But the oldest races, the ones who remembered the last human war, knew better. They remember, one old Draxian general said. They are waiting. But waiting for what? A week passed. Then two. The Krell were growing bolder. They attacked a human outpost near the edge of their space. The station didn't fight back. It was empty. Left behind like it meant nothing. The Krell took it as a sign of fear. The Council started to panic. They begged Earth to respond, to act, to prepare. Still, silence. Then, a trader ship picked up something strange. Deep in space, far from Earth, it found an old Terran listening post. It was dead. No power, no signal. The trader went inside. What they found made them turn back at once. The walls were covered in writing. Old human war codes, scratched by hand. Names of battles long forgotten. Symbols used only by Earth's secret forces. And one final message. You declared war. Now meet the result. The trader barely made it out. The Council asked for proof. They sent drones to that area. But the post was gone, as if it had never been there. Then, something even stranger happened. Krell scout ships started disappearing. No signs of battle. No distress calls. Just silence. In the reports, the last sound from one ship was a strange humming. A soft tune. When translated, it matched an old Earth melody, a lullaby played for children during war. The Council demanded answers. Earth gave none. But one rumor started to spread through the stars. The Terran Black files had been opened. No one had seen those files in 300 years. They were part of Earth's deep defense program, locked away when peace was signed. Only the highest-level humans had access to them. Stories said the files held the locations of hidden weapons, old warships, and instructions for what to do if the galaxy ever turned on Earth again. Now those files were active. But who had opened them? And why had Earth not sent a single ship? The Krell believed humans were stalling, that they were scared. So they planned to send a full fleet toward Mars, Earth's closest colony planet. The fleet was large, 100 warships strong. But the night before launch, all their screens went black. One message appeared. No voice. No warning. Just white letters on a black screen. Do not test silence. Then the lights exploded across their control rooms. Every system crashed. A dozen ships lost control and drifted into their own space mines. Thousands of Krell soldiers died before the fleet even moved. The Krell grew afraid. The Council demanded Earth explain. But Earth did nothing. Just silence. And in that silence, the galaxy began to understand. Earth was not afraid. Earth was remembering. And when humans remember war, the stars tremble. Krell Commander Vurok stared at the black screen in front of him. The message still glowed faintly. Do not test silence. He didn't know what it meant, but he felt something deep inside. A chill. Something he hadn't felt in decades. Fear. The Krell Dominion had ruled many systems. They crushed resistance. They feared nothing. But this silence from Earth was different. It didn't feel like surrender. It felt like a warning. Still, Vurok ordered a scout team to continue the mission. One ship, one target. There was an old human vessel drifting in neutral space. No signal. No power. It had been abandoned for years. The Krell team boarded it. At first, they found nothing. Just rusted walls and empty rooms. The ship had no heat, no lights, no life. But then they reached the control room, and the walls began to speak. Not with sound, but with messages, written in red ink, sprayed across steel panels. Human words, strange codes, old military phrases from wars long past. One word stood out, written across the captain's seat in bold red letters. Awakened. The Krell soldiers backed away. One of them touched a screen. It flickered. A human voice, slow and calm, spoke only one sentence. You have entered the forgotten. Then the power shut off completely. No one returned from that ship. The Krell called it a malfunction. But others knew better. Something had activated. Something old. Something deadly. Back on Earth, there were no signs of war. No troops marched. No ships launched. But far underground, deep inside the Earth's core bunkers, ancient doors began to open. Red lights blinked after hundreds of years of sleep. The Ghost Protocol had begun. It was a secret program made during the last human war. A last option, a silent one. It was never meant to fight openly. It was designed to prepare Earth for one kind of enemy, a galaxy that forgot to fear humanity. Eye systems turned on. Files unlocked. Satellites shifted. Warships hidden in deep space slowly powered up, still waiting for orders. The Ghost Fleet. 100 ships, each with no crew. Each controlled by the war code left behind by Earth's last military commander. And they were now awake. But the galaxy didn't know that yet. Weeks passed. Krell ships continued their patrols. Then, one night, an entire Krell fleet vanished. 20 ships. No distress signals. No warnings. Just gone. The Council sent drones to scan the area. All they found was a small metal box floating in space. Inside it was a recording. It showed a Krell battleship bridge, right before it disappeared. A strange sound filled the air. A soft tune. No screams. No lasers. Just that same old Earth lullaby. The Council went silent. They knew that tune. All old races did. It was called Sleep, Brave Soldier, a human song used during the last war, played when missions ended, or when soldiers were never coming back. Now it was playing for Krell ships. Other species started panicking. Some offered help to Earth, but Earth didn't reply. Not one word. Not one message. Nothing. Just silence. Some believed Earth had died, that machines had taken over. But the truth was far worse. Earth was watching. The Ghost Protocol didn't just attack. It studied. It tracked. It prepared. And one by one, Krell bases, ships, and outposts began to fail. Their systems shut down. Their lights blinked strange codes. Weapons stopped working. Doors opened on their own. But no one ever saw the enemy. Because the enemy wasn't walking. It was already inside. In the shadows of a moon near the Krell border, something appeared. A ship. It didn't match any modern designs. No crew. No sound. Just black steel and a name written in old Earth script. TSV Widow, one of the missing Ghost Fleet warships. It moved silently. And when Krell scouts approached it, it vanished. Not with speed. With light. The ship bent light around itself. An ancient stealth system. The Krell began to fear empty space. Every corner might hide another human ghost ship. Every shadow might be the last thing they see. The Council tried again. They begged Earth for communication, even offered peace. But Earth didn't respond. No threats. No answers. Just silence. Until a signal appeared on every Council screen. Text only. Old Terran style. Ghost Protocol. Phase 2 activated. And below it, a line of names. Not human names. Krell commanders. Their locations. Their ships. Their next meeting time. The Council panicked. How did Earth know? The answer came from one of their own spies. He sent a single word before disappearing forever. Everywhere. Now, even the Krell Dominion began to whisper in fear. Not of ships. Not of soldiers. But of silence. Because in the cold emptiness of space, Earth was no longer speaking. It was listening. And when humans listen, the deadliest part is what comes next. Krell High Command had a problem. One they refused to admit out loud. They were losing. Not in open battle. Not in skies filled with fire, but in the dark, quiet ways that no war manual had prepared them for. Ships were disappearing. Bases were going silent. Soldiers were afraid to sleep. And still, Earth had not fired a single official shot. Across the galaxy, whispers grew. People remembered old human stories, tales passed down by species who had once fought them. Stories many believed were just myths. Stories about a group of humans who never wore uniforms, who had no home base, no name. Some called them ghost walkers. Others called them the forgotten. But Earth had another name for them. Echo Team. Not a team, really. A code. A concept. They didn't work for any government. They worked for something older, Earth's survival instinct. And now, the signs were clear. They were back. A Krell mining colony near the dead nebula sent a call for help. Their systems were failing one by one. Lights flickered. Machinery stopped. Then the power came back. Everything seemed normal again, until they saw it. A message carved into the metal wall of their main reactor. Echoes never fade. There was no breach. No signs of entry. But the mining chief disappeared that same night. So did his second-in-command. Their rooms were clean. Beds untouched. The only thing left behind was a file on the colony's central computer. A video clip. It showed old Earth soldiers, humans with blank faces and black armor, walking through fire and ruin like ghosts. The file had no title. Just a number. 03ECHO. The Krell tried to erase it. It came back the next day. Twice. The Council called an emergency session. They invited Earth's ambassador. He arrived late. Alone. He wore no armor. No weapons. Just a calm expression and a small metal badge on his chest. An old Earth symbol of peace. They asked him questions. He answered none. He simply placed a data chip on the table. "This is a gift," he said, "for memory." Then he left. No guard stopped him. No one dared. When they played the chip, silence filled the chamber. Then, screams. Thousands of voices, Krell voices, crying out in terror. The video showed security feeds from Krell ships, bases, outposts. every place that had recently gone silent. In each one, the last image was the same: a shadowed human figure walking slowly toward the camera. Sometimes alone, sometimes two or three. Never fast, never loud. Just walking, and always before the lights cut out. The council tried to pause the video. It wouldn't stop, not until the last second, when a single human voice, calm and low, spoke 3 words: "We are awake." Panic spread. Even species that once mocked Earth now watched their skies with fear. Trade routes changed, alliances shifted, and deep underground, on a forgotten moon, once used by humans for training, something moved. A door opened. Inside, thousands of suits of armor stood waiting, each black as night, marked only by a white symbol on the chest, the letter E. These were not normal suits. They were worn by the first Echo team, nearly 300 years ago. And now, the lights inside them blinked. One by one, they were being reactivated. Earth didn't need new soldiers. They were bringing back the old ones. On a Krell prison ship, a scientist screamed. He had found something. Something in human brain scans. He had studied prisoners, Earth soldiers captured during past conflicts. They all had one strange thing in common. A part of their minds was silent. Not dead, just locked. And now something was unlocking it. From far away. The Ghost Protocol wasn't just waking machines. It was waking memories. Human memories from old soldiers. From agents trained to forget who they were until the right signal came. That signal had been sent. Now they were remembering. Not just names, but how to kill, how to vanish, how to win without being seen. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the war zones, a child on a Nor planet asked her grandfather a question. Is it true humans used to scare everyone? The old Nor looked at the sky. His voice shook. Yes, he said, not because of their weapons. Then why? He paused. Because when they go quiet, things begin to disappear. He hugged her tighter, and she noticed his eyes never left the stars. As if waiting, watching, for something or someone. Back in the Krell home system, alarms rang again. One of their moons had vanished. Not exploded. Vanished. Nothing but empty dust and a single metal cube floating in orbit. It was playing a human message on repeat. A simple one. Over and over. In every language known across the stars. Legends weren't stories. They were warnings. And now, the warning had come true. The Krell thought they had seen all of Earth's weapons. They believed humans had shown their best during the last Great War centuries ago. But they were wrong. Earth hadn't used its best weapons back then. It had buried them. Now, they were waking up. In a dark zone between star systems, Krell patrol ships moved slowly. Their scanners kept searching for the strange human signals. But then, every screen went black. One by one. No explosions, no attacks, just silence, until one pilot looked out the window and saw something drifting through space. At first, it looked like space debris. But then it turned, and they saw the shape, long, sharp, and smooth, like a hunting animal. No windows, no engines, just a massive black object that moved without sound. It wasn't a ship. It was something else. A weapon, a human one. The ship's name was written in old Terran letters along its side. Fang 9. No one had heard of it before. Not in any file. Not in any record. That was the point. Fang-class war devices were never meant to be used. They were too dangerous, too smart. They weren't controlled by humans. They controlled themselves. Fang 9 moved once, just once, and all 4 Krell ships near it were gone. Nothing left. No fire. No light. Just empty space. The Krell Council demanded answers. They hacked into every record they could find about Earth's old tech. But Earth's files were locked, even the oldest ones. Every time they tried to break through, they got the same message. Access denied. Not yours to uncover. Frustrated, the Council sent spies. One spy reached an old human listening post on the edge of a forgotten star system. He found bones. Not from war. From something else. Something clean. Silent. And written on the walls were the words, "They called us extinct." He ran back to his ship. He'd never made it off the planet. His last transmission. Screaming. And a short message before the feed cut out. They left teeth behind. Back on Earth, the world still looked peaceful. No armies in the streets. No war drums. Children played in the sunlight. But far below the surface, the core systems activated their final layer. The Fang Vaults. Not ships. Not soldiers. But machines, hunters made of dark steel, wrapped in light-bending shields. No AI controlled them. They were built from human instinct itself. Each one had a single task. If Earth is ever threatened again, tear open the stars. They weren't meant to protect Earth. They were meant to punish those who dared to come near it. And they were no longer sleeping. News spread quickly. Planets far from Earth began to feel the change. Weather patterns shifted. Strange signals played in old satellites. Ancient Earth satellites that had been drifting for centuries suddenly lit up, aiming lasers at the sky, not as weapons, but as guides. Coordinates. Warnings. Some species tried to decode them. They wished they hadn't. Each code was a kill list. Ships, bases, leaders, all marked. And those names began to disappear. Not just from life. From memory. Digital files erased. Pictures gone. As if Earth had reached back in time and scratched them out. One bold Krell general launched a direct assault. He sent 30 ships toward Earth's outer defenses. Halfway there, they passed a cloud of asteroids. Or so they thought. Then the asteroids moved. They weren't rocks. They were dormant weapons, hidden inside shells of space stone. Each one opened like a flower. Silent. Deadly. Fang-class weapons disguised as debris. The Krell never had a chance. Only one message was recovered from the black box of the lead ship. They were smiling. Elsewhere, an old human admiral, retired, nearly forgotten, stood on a cliffside overlooking the ocean. He wore no medals, no uniform, just a plain jacket and tired eyes. A drone arrived. It carried a message. He read it once, then smiled. He walked into a hidden shelter buried in the ground. It opened only to his voice. Inside, a long room waited. Walls covered in maps, weapons, and ancient war plans. He whispered 3 words, "Teeth to the wind," and hundreds of red lights blinked across the stars. Fang-class systems, waiting for that exact phrase. The old admiral sat down, closed his eyes, and said, "Now they'll remember why they feared us." Back in Krell territory, fear spread faster than any virus. They began to shut down stations, call back patrols, even erase records about Earth, trying to hide, to forget. But it was too late. A message appeared in the sky above the Krell homeworld, projected by thousands of stolen satellites. One phrase. No voice. No warning. Just a simple line from old human history. "We never used our fangs before, but now you've seen them." The Krell were good at pretending. They had mastered the art of silence, of spreading fear in shadows and leaving no trace behind. But Earth had something the Krell couldn't understand. Humans never really disappeared. They just waited. It started with a light, a small red glow far from the war zones, at the edge of the galaxy, near a forgotten star system. Krell scouts thought it was a dying star. But when they moved closer, they realized something was wrong. The light was too controlled. It wasn't natural. And it was growing. And then it exploded. Not in fire or energy, but in colors. Ribbons of red, blue, and gold stretched across the sky, so bright they made the stars themselves look dim. No one knew where it came from. It wasn't a signal. It wasn't a ship. It was just light. But it wasn't just any light. It was a warning. One Krell officer stared up at the sky in disbelief, his fingers shaking as he opened his communication channel. "Commander, there's something out there. I don't know how to explain it." The commander's voice was cold, calm. "Get back. Now." But by then, it was already too late. Back on Earth, the world felt like it was holding its breath. No one spoke about the growing tension. People went about their daily lives, walking, talking, working, as if the stars themselves had never changed. Yet deep in the heart of Earth's War Command Center, a voice echoed in the shadows of a secure room. "The signal is ready." No one responded. They didn't need to. The voice continued, the same calm tone. "It begins." Across the globe, the sky shifted in ways no one could explain. Birds stopped flying. Wind fell silent. The oceans stopped moving. And above all, the stars blushed. The light didn't just stretch across the galaxy. It connected worlds. Planets far and wide turned their eyes toward Earth. Something was coming, but no one knew what. A young human scientist, watching from his lab, noticed it first. A strange pattern in the light, shapes, repeating over and over. They weren't natural. He analyzed the data quickly, realizing the impossible. The pattern matched coordinates, specific locations. And those locations, they were Krell worlds. The scientist paled. They had marked the Krell homeworld. He sent out the warning. But no one answered. On the Krell homeworld, panic spread like wildfire. For the first time, their perfect systems faltered. Cities froze in silence. The once impenetrable defense shields flickered. No one could explain why. And no one could stop it. The sky began to fill with more than just light. Fang 9, and 100 others just like it. Suddenly, the long-forgotten warships that had stayed dormant for centuries were awake. And they were no longer waiting. They were on the move. The Krell sent out their ships, hoping to stop the human threat before it reached their home system. But no one had prepared for this. The warships arrived, one by one, and they spread like a shadow across the galaxy, moving in perfect synchronization. The human fleet didn't fire a single shot. Instead, it surrounded the Krell, and it simply waited. Back in the Krell home system, the last ship that had survived the sudden attack tried to escape. Its engines roared, pushing it away from the incoming threat. But the Fang-class ships weren't chasing. They were playing. The moment the Krell ship attempted to jump to faster-than-light speeds, the Fang ships closed in. Their lights shifted, flashing a warning. Not yet. Then, everything went dark. No warning. No explosion. Just the absolute silence of space. And when the darkness cleared, the Krell ship was gone. Vanished. Without a trace. On Earth, the scientists knew something had changed. But they still didn't understand it fully. The human fleet had made their move. Their ships didn't destroy. They didn't kill. They simply disappeared what they wanted to. The Krell were no longer the ones in control. And they knew it. And in the far reaches of space, a transmission came through. A single voice, clear and direct, echoed through the communication channels. "You've seen us." It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was calm, almost too calm. "We warned you. And now, you understand." The Krell tried to block the signal. They tried to silence it. But the transmission had already gone out. Across the stars, every ship, every station, every world heard it. And the message was simple. "We've always been here, and now, we will never leave." The Krell knew the truth now, the same truth that Earth had known for centuries. Humans didn't need armies. They didn't need weapons. They didn't need to invade. They just needed to wait. And when the time was right, They would change the stars. Forever. Back on Earth, the world exhaled. For the first time in centuries, they felt the weight of silence. And in that silence, they heard the same thing that every species in the galaxy heard. Humanity had returned, and it was never going away again. The stars were quiet now. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt the stillness of something ancient, something old. It wasn't a calm. It was a pause, a moment before the storm. The Krell tried everything they knew. They gathered their fleets. They built new weapons. They sent spies. But nothing could stop the truth. Humanity was back, and they had something the Krell could never understand: patience. The Krell had been warriors, conquerors. They believed in power, strength, control. But the humans fought with something else. And they had waited. Now it was the Krell who were waiting. On Earth, the leaders of the world gathered in secret. They stood in a room below the surface, hidden from the public. Above them, the sky shuddered with strange energy, and the world outside remained oblivious. "We've won," one leader said, his voice low. "No," another whispered. "Not yet. We've only just begun." They all knew the same thing. The humans had done something no one had ever expected. They had made the galaxy tremble. But the Krell had not surrendered. Not yet. And no one could say what would happen next. In the dark, somewhere far from Earth, the Krell Council met. The leaders of their race, their most powerful beings, sat in silence, their faces grim, their eyes burning with hate and fear. "How?" one of them asked. "How did they hide this from us for so long?" "We underestimated them," said another, clenching his fists. "We laughed at their stories, their legends. We called them weak." A long pause filled the room. The silence pressed down on them, heavy as a star's gravity. "And now," another voice broke the stillness. "What do we do now?" The council turned to their supreme commander, a towering figure known only as Lord Arak. Lord Arak had always been known for his strength, his power. He had never shown fear. But now, in the face of Earth's new threat, even he looked uncertain. "They're coming for us," he finally said, his voice low and dangerous. "And we are not ready." Back on Earth, things were changing. The Fang ships that had stayed hidden for centuries began to move. They no longer waited in the shadows. They took to the stars. Humanity was preparing for something they had never expected to do again: a war. But this time, they didn't need a vast army. They didn't need to fight the way the Krell fought. Humanity's power was in their silence. The Krell fleet moved toward Earth, led by their most powerful warship, the Shadow of Avaris. It was a beast of a ship, dark as night, built to strike fear into the hearts of anyone who saw it. But even as they moved closer, something was wrong. The stars seemed to dim. The engines of the Shadow of Avaris pulsed in a strange, irregular rhythm. The ship's sensors blinked, catching signals from the far reaches of the galaxy. The signals weren't from Earth. They weren't from any familiar ship. They were new, and they were everywhere. The Krell fleet hesitated. Something wasn't right. Suddenly, the communications officer cried out, "Commander, look at the stars." The sky was changing. It wasn't just a dark patch in space. It was a wave. An endless, dark wave sweeping across the galaxy, moving faster than anything the Krell had ever seen. At first, it looked like a shadow, a distortion, like an eclipse moving across the stars. But as the shadow grew, the Krell realized it wasn't natural. It was human. It was the Fang fleet. Hundreds, thousands of warships, all moving in perfect synchronization. The ships weren't just coming from one place. They were coming from everywhere. And they weren't just ships. They were forces. The Shadow of Avaris hesitated. The silence stretched. Then, the voice of Lord Arak echoed through the command deck. "We've made a mistake." But it was too late to turn back. As the human fleet descended on Krell space, Earth's message echoed through the galaxy once more. We are here, and we will never leave. The Fang ships didn't fire. They didn't need to. The human fleet moved in silence. A final message sent, not through words, but through action. The stars trembled, not with fear, but with something older, something the Krell had forgotten. Respect. The Krell had once ruled the stars. Now, they were nothing but shadows of the past. And Earth stood as a monument to what had always been there, what had always been waiting. In the silence, in the darkness, in the quiet pull of the galaxy's true power, humanity stood strong. The galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had never felt this quiet. Once, it had been filled with the sounds of war, the noise of battles fought on 100 different worlds, the hum of engines, the roar of weapons, the screams of victory and defeat. It had been a galaxy on fire. Now, it was silent. Silent like the deep, cold void between stars. Silent like the breath before the storm. The Krell had fallen back to their homeworld, their stronghold, hoping to make their final stand. But the galaxy had already decided. The stars, once a beacon of their power, now seemed to shudder in the presence of humanity's fleet. Lord Arak stood at the highest tower on Krell's capital. Below him, the city was in chaos. Krell soldiers scrambled, preparing for an enemy that had already won. Their warships, their weapons, their shields, none of it would save them now. Arak's mind raced. He had always believed that victory was about strength, about crushing your enemies. But what if strength wasn't enough? What if the humans had something more? He turned to the officer beside him. "Do you hear it?" he asked quietly. The officer, his face pale, nodded. "Yes, Commander." The silence. It's everywhere. For the first time, Arak felt it. The quiet, the waiting, the knowledge that the galaxy had shifted forever. Across the galaxy, humanity's ships waited. They didn't need to do anything. They didn't need to fire a single shot. Their presence alone was enough to keep the Krell and every other species at bay. They had proven their point. They had shown the galaxy that they weren't a force to be taken lightly. That silence, that waiting, had been the final message. Now, the stars themselves seemed to echo with the memory of it. The quiet spread, like a ripple through water. It reached far beyond the Krell. The other species, the ones who had once laughed at humanity's weakness, now felt the weight of that silence. The galaxy was changing, and no one could stop it. On Earth, the leaders of the world stood together in a room that had once been hidden away, deep below the surface of the planet. They had watched the silence fall over the galaxy. They had listened to the echoes of it, felt the tremors of power that had spread from the heart of humanity's fleet. They knew they had won, but the victory felt different. There had been no final battle, no great clash of armies. The war had been fought, and humanity had emerged victorious, but not in the way they had expected. "We did it," one leader said quietly, his voice tinged with awe. "We've changed everything." Another leader shook her head. "It's not over. The galaxy will never forget what we've done, but we can't stop. Not now. Not after everything we've shown." They all understood. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Humanity had sent a message to the stars, and now they had to live with the consequences. Back in Krell space, the last remnants of the once proud empire were scattered. The Krell had retreated into their strongholds, hiding from the inevitable. They had tried to fight. They had tried to run, but nothing could stop the weight of history that had been set in motion. Lord Arak stood alone in his chamber, staring out at the silent sky. He had once believed in his people's invincibility. They had conquered worlds. They had crushed civilizations. But now, as the quiet stretched across the galaxy, he knew the truth. The Krell had lost. It was a truth he had tried to avoid, but it was undeniable now. And the silence, it was louder than any battle cry. It was a sound that filled the universe, that resonated in the hearts of every being who had ever looked up at the stars. Humanity had not only defeated the Krell, they had reshaped the galaxy itself. No one could doubt it now. The humans had taken what had once seemed impossible, the belief that a single species could stand against the might of an entire galaxy, and they had made it real. And now, the galaxy would live with the consequences of that truth. On Earth, the final transmission was sent out. It wasn't a victory declaration. It wasn't a boast. It was a simple statement, one that would echo through the stars forever. We are the silence. The stars would never be the same. The quiet would never fade. And humanity's place in the galaxy had been secured. Forever. The galaxy had been changed, not by a single battle, but by the waiting. The silence that had echoed across time and space. And in the silence, the galaxy knew. Humanity was no longer the underdog. Humanity was the force that had shaped the stars.